I finally like X2. I know. I am the guy who notoriously hates this coaster and think it ranks ninth in the park behind Goliath. But my opinion has changed. I have been enlightened, and now I actually enjoy X2 and see the beauty that this coaster brings. In today's video, we will be covering everything X2 has to offer, including why I hated the coaster before, why I like it now, and where it ends up in my overall rankings. Prepare yourself to be insanely mad at me for the beginning of the video, explaining why I hate this coaster. It will get better, just trust me. So first off, why did I hate this coaster? Well, there are a lot of reasons, but to put it bluntly, it's mainly roughness. X2 is incredibly rough. It's a fact. Now some people like it, they think it adds to the intensity and makes X2 X2, but to also put it bluntly, I still don't like the roughness. However, I have improved my tolerance to rattles a lot. It kinda started with liking Green Lantern, riding more aero loopers, and riding some whippy flat rides, and finished with me riding Giant Dipper at Belmont Park. The combination of riding all these rides has built my tolerance a lot, especially Giant Dipper, which is by far the roughest coaster I have ever ridden, and I still somewhat enjoyed it. So that helped a lot going into X2 in my most recent visit to Magic Mountain. This, however, doesn't mean I like Viper. I still hate that coaster. I like aero loopers, but I just can't stand Viper. It also did not help that my first ever ride on X2 was on the outside seat, and I had no idea what I was getting into. This is when I started to become an enthusiast while talking to Flashwing, but still, he never warned me how bad X2 is, or even to sit on the inside seat. I don't know how he missed a detail that obvious. So yeah, I hit my head hard on the final Raven turn, and it scarred my image of X2 for life. I did ride it again on an inside seat, but still found it super rough and unenjoyable, and that's where my stance on X2 stood for a very long time. That is until my most recent visit to Magic Mountain. It always is so cool to drive up to the park and see X2 hovering over the parking line. It's really cool. And on this 104-degree summer day when I decided to visit Six Flags, the fire was on. Now this excited me. I never went into the mindset I hate X2, it sucks because it's a bad coaster. I have always told myself I need a good ride on it to truly appreciate what it does. I mean, I had heard wild tales of X2 being glass smooth if you get on a certain train, on a certain slide, on the inside seat in a certain row. Now, that is not what happened to make me like X2. It's rough, and it's always rough, and I don't believe you can get a smooth ride on this coaster. After all, it's X2 we are talking about. So I built my tolerance to roughness. Did anything else change? Well, not really. I mean, waiting in line, Flashman gave me some advice on how to properly ride this. Head back on the first drop, and then head forward the rest of the ride. And that actually helped a lot. Look, I think this tip is what saved X2 for me. I found a way to somewhat comfortably ride it. So that's what's changed. Now let's talk about the actual coaster. The queue line is actually one of my favorites in the park. I don't know why. Maybe it's all the signs hyping up the ride or the immense shade cover from the trees, but I just really enjoy it. The station is also one of my favorites. The metallic look of the building is really cool, along with the operator sitting above the platform. The left and right side Twix sponsor is actually so fitting and I love it. It helps build the extra suspense a little more. Once you are in the station, you will notice the trains. You will also notice the terrible operations on X2. This coaster runs one train a majority of the time, and with the complicated restraints and long layout, expect super high wait times when there isn't even that many people. But back to the trains. These are incredibly cool. The restraints are pretty complicated and very comfortable. I love how the little box at the end of the train goes around the circuit every time. I do wish the trains had a little more color like Janica, but hey, I can't really complain. Now here's when I tell you that the inside seat is way smoother. I also recommend leaning towards the tighter side of locking your restraint. If you don't, you are going to be tossed around into every side of the restraint, and it hurts. For row selection, I don't really notice a difference.
It's time to stop!
So once you are locked in and dispatched, you start with a 180-degree turn out the station, and the seat already starts hammering away at you on this 5-mile-per-hour turn. That was a little bit of exaggeration, but the seat is already tweaking out here. It's rocking back and forth on what should be the smoothest part of the ride. Anyways, you then start to ascend the best lift hill in the world, maybe. As you go up this lift hill backwards, you get a stunning aerial view of the entire park. You can see all the coasters, and at dusk, it is the best view. Now, when I was going up this lift hill, I turned to Flashwing and said, I wish I could appreciate the view, but I'm fearing for my life right now. Yep, that's right, X2 is scary. It's been a while since I've been scared to ride a coaster. Ever since becoming an enthusiast, nothing fazed me, not even King the Cobb. The only coasters that did faze me were Viper and X2, all because they are both painful experiences. So yeah, I was scared riding X2. It was kind of refreshing to have that feeling again, but yeah. As you go up the lift hill, you dip into this pre-drop before hitting the first drop. It's pretty cool and it builds up the speed for the grand reveal. All of a sudden you are flipped over looking face down at the ground, and this is the most bizarre and crazy experience ever. It really is 3 of a kind. As you fall towards the ground looking face first at it, that's just an experience that is so disorienting and scary. At the last second you flip out on your back and proceed into a Raven turn. This is by far the best first drop in the park. Twisted Colossus doesn't even come close, and I still think X2 is better than Wonder Woman's. After the first drop, you go into the first of 2 Raven turns. This Raven turn is glass smooth and delivers positive Gs pretty much throughout the whole element. You were flipped on your back before, so all the forces are very comfortable. It feels a lot like Tatsu's pretzel loop because you're pushed into the back of your seat the whole time. You also get the insane view of the sky, then flying up and seeing the ground again. The positive Gs are not that strong. I guess this element could make you gray out, but it's pretty light. It is sustained though, and that's what makes it my second favorite element, only behind the first drop. Following the first Raven turn, you go into these weird hills. RCDB lists them as fly to lie, but essentially the seats just flip you from your back to your stomach to upright. These elements are all really cool, especially because it is on the smoother side, but I still don't think it's amazing. Following this, you go into a turnaround. This is nothing like Edenika's turnaround. The seats don't really flip, and you just turn like a normal wing coaster. This is a nice time to catch your breath. Despite being slow and forceless, this section is still shaky. Like I said, everything past the first Raven turn is incredibly rough. This is when which from having my head back to having it forward, because if you don't have your head forward, you're going to end up with a concussion or something at least close to it. After the turnaround, you do another fly to lie, this time with a roll in the track. As you switch from going downwards to looking back up, fire theoretically should come on. I only had the fire at one once, and it was on the ride that I regained my appreciation for X2. This roll is easily disorienting, and the fire makes it even more unpredictable. Even though you're flying right by the fire, you can still very clearly see it and feel it. It is very hot. The final element of X2 is a Raven turn. Unlike the first one, this Raven turn is straight unbearable. I still have my head forward at this point, but on my very first ride, I had no idea how to ride this and hit my head so hard it hurt for the rest of the day. So yes, this element is not fun at all. This coaster would just be better off if they remove it. Nevertheless, it delivers light positives until you hit the final brake run, and on the final brake run, the seats are still rocking from the inhumane torture that just went on a few seconds ago. So that's X2 for you. It's crazy, intense, and disorienting, and truly 3 of a kind. Now where does this coaster rank in the park? Well, I think X2 is amazing, but it still has some flaws. Flashwing, the editor of this channel, confidently ranks this as the best in the park.
Hell yeah.
And I totally respect that opinion, because it is objectively correct. But my subjective opinion does not think so. I like airtime a lot, like enough to put it above the disorienting, intense, and painful experience that X2 provides. Twisted Colossus beats out X2 for me, especially when it duels, and especially when it double duels. I also think Wonder Woman is ahead of X2. Now I may lose some of you here, but Wonder Woman's amazing pacing combined with the best airtime in the park, only behind Full Throttle's final drop, puts it ahead of X2. Tatsu does fall short of X2 though, as I feel like the experience that Tatsu delivers is way less insane than X2. So number 3 in the park, that's not number 1, but it's better than being number 9 behind Goliath. So here are my final thoughts on this coaster. Well, it's extremely good. X2 is one of a kind experience that you literally cannot get elsewhere except in China and Japan, but that's beside the point. The crazy maneuvers that this coaster pulls off is insane. The first drop and first Raven turn is amazing, and the rest of the ride brings in the punch you need, like literally. The fire adds an extra touch that I love, and I'm sure the onboard audio would do a whole lot more, especially because I'm a sucker for music. I do wish it was smoother, well, I wish it was league smoother, but you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. As for score, I would give X2 a solid 9 out of 10. It's close to being perfect, but there are still a lot of flaws, mainly operations in the final Raven turn. I don't think I will ever choose to ride a 4-dimensional coaster on the outside seat again, but for now I could safely say, I like X2, and I'm looking forward to riding Edeniko. That's all for today's video guys. As always, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Good.